I have exciting news. The Brighter Side of Education is now officially CPD accredited, which means you can now earn continuing education credits just for listening. So stay tuned for details to learn how to claim your credits. Your professional development just got a little easier. As generative AI shapes the way we live and learn, there's a strong need for resources and guidance to help educators and parents navigate AI's potential while protecting children's learning, safety, and well-being. Join us today for an insightful dual-lens conversation with technologist and father, Mike Todasco. Welcome to the Brighter Side of Education, Research, Innovation, and Resources. I'm your host, Dr. Lisa Hassler, here to enlighten and brighten the classrooms in America through focused conversation on important topics in education. In each episode, I discuss problems we as teachers and parents are facing and what people are doing in their communities to fix it. What are the variables? And how can we duplicate it to maximize student outcomes? How will AI impact children's education? Well, AI literacy is now the number one skill employers demand. LinkedIn's 2025 data shows AI literacy topping employer demands, while 70% of job skills will change by 2030. To best prepare students to meet this demand, the executive order Advancing Artificial Intelligence Education for American Youth was released in April. Now, as this sits in the lap of the education field to implement, teachers are in need of professional development and reliable resources to effectively teach the required AI literacy skills to their students while integrating AI across all their subject areas, starting in kindergarten. As parents are unsure how their children are even using generative AI, they also haven't had significant conversations about its appropriate use, expressing growing concerns regarding their children's safety and well-being amid cyberbullying, scams, and rampant misinformation. The statistics are striking. The Alan Turing Institute found that over 22% of children aged 8 to 12 are already using generative AI tools like ChatGPT and Gemini, many without the ability to distinguish between AI and human content. As alarming as this is, a recent National Parents Union survey reveals more parent insights. Their biggest concern is that their children will rely too much on AI, thereby reducing their learning. And the MIT-led study, Your Brain on ChatGPT, Accumulation of Cognitive Debt when Using an AI Assistant for Essay Writing Task, supports that concern, with findings of prefrontal cortex activity reduction, impacting learning and cognitive skills among participants who use ChatGPT for essay writing. Schools and parents need to work together now more than ever to educate children in AI literacy and thinking skills to ensure that AI integration serves student-centered learning while maintaining ethical safeguards and protecting student well-being. Through a coordinated homeschool approach to technology integration, academic achievement, and digital citizenship can nurture the next generation of AI innovators and advance scientific achievement. And that's why I'm so thrilled to welcome Mike Todasco, a visiting fellow at the AI Center at San Diego State University and a former senior director of innovation at PayPal. With a background in AI innovation and as a parent of 2 school-aged children, Mike is here to bridge the AI gap between home and school, giving parents and teachers confidence to guide children through this complex and evolving field. Welcome to the show, Michael. Love to jump into this conversation. It's so timely.
No, absolutely, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
So you are a visiting fellow at the AI Center in the San Diego State University. What is it that you do as a visiting fellow?
Kind of whatever I want to, which makes it an awesome job. So that's kind of fellow doesn't have any real responsibilities in many ways. The things I do, I get to teach, whether they're classes or guest lecture or teach seminars. I'm doing one on AI and accounting, for example. I do even free ones for the public. Like later this week, I'll be doing one on LinkedIn Live about using AI for program management. So teach a lot of stuff. I mentor students. I write about AI things a lot and also do research. Specifically, my area of interest is human perceptions of AI created versus human created work and how that changes based on cultures and how that changes over time.
Yeah. And what have you seen with that? Do people like
People
it?
don't like AI stuff as a big headline. And the research, it's slightly deceitful in some ways, because usually what I'll do is do something like give a text and say, hey, this was written by Jane Doe, or this was written by an AI, and see how people rate it in both scenarios, even though it's the exact same passage. The biases seem to be greatest in the United States and some other Western places. Japan and others, for example, don't have that same level of bias, but this is something we're just starting to do now, but we're going to continually track and understand, because the world we're moving into is one where people are going to be creating besides AI. I'm already doing this today. Many people are creating with AI today. And what's that going to mean in the future? I don't know. And that's like where we're trying to at least get a baseline now of where we're starting.
What kind of impacts are you seeing AI have on education for children?
I think a net is positive. I think where the negatives come in a lot of ways is through teachers and professors that haven't kind of evolved to the new reality that we're in today.
Yeah.
That's where I'm seeing that. I'd love to give an example. My son had an 8th grade English teacher. And at some point, a couple of years back, he said, do you know what? I'm not using computers in this class anymore. I'm just done. This was maybe at the advent of ChatGPT. It might have even been a little bit before. He's like, do you know what? We're going notebooks, pen and paper. Like, we're doing this stuff in class. We're not really going to have much homework. Maybe we'll touch a computer here or there, but really this class is just old school pen and paper. For an 8th grade English class, that's an awesome way to kind of think about it. Because look, take home essays that you could have assigned in 2020, you can't really assign those exact same things in 2025. And as a teacher, you need to be flexible like that to say, what is it that I want my kids to learn? What are the tools that they should have? What are the skills that are going to matter in the future? And then it takes some reevaluation of like, okay, well, given that, what can I do? The great benefit is you can use these AI tools and say, hey, here's my old syllabus. Here's all my old lecture slides that I had. This is like my vision of how I want these kids to perform and behave in the future. Tell me how to tweak these things. And that's what we need.
Yeah, just seeing how it can advance certain things like personalized education. There's a lot of positives, and being aware of some of the pitfalls is very important as well.
AIs have infinite patience. We kind of hit a wall sometimes if we're teaching, if we're explaining, but an AI can just keep going. They could use analogies that are customized for that kid based upon their likes, their interests. A teacher could set it up where you have an AI bot doing that 30 different ways for each and every student that they have in the class. So there might be one way they lecture to the group as a whole, but there might be different ways to reinforce that. And that's where the real benefit is. There's been some work done in Nigeria where they gave students AI tutors. And if I remember the data right, like within a year, the students who had an AI tutor progressed 2 years versus the ones who did not. And so if you think about those that don't have means to an actual tutor, but an AI tutor is accessible to many, many more people.
Yeah, definitely the accessibility is such a key point. But some children don't know the difference between, is this human that I'm talking to? Is this AI? And so what are skills that they need when they're using generative AI?
There's a concept of the Turing test. And this is something that Alan Turing, who's kind of one of the original godfathers of artificial intelligence, created. Basically, somebody was texting with an entity, and they didn't know, was that entity a human or was that a computer? And this was something that, as you can imagine, 50, 60 years ago was really hard for a computer to pass. We have blown past that right now. There's no way for us, for all practical purposes, to tell a good AI from a being. There's just no way. And I don't think that's a good thing at all.
No.
I mean, of all the things in AI, this is what scares me the most. I do see at some point they're going to hold up their phone or their pendants and say like, hey, here's my boyfriend. That's starting to become a reality. Old professor of mine, Sam Apple, actually wrote about this in Wired, of people who are doing this today. This is becoming more and more common, especially for people who may not be acclimated to social interactions in the same way. With these tools coming out, like where their brains still aren't hardwired, I see these AI friendships, and I'm using that in quotes, they're going to become more prominent. And again, I don't know, and I don't think that that's going to be a good thing.
No, these companions are really well trained to say all the things that you love and you're so wonderful and you're the best. They're very supportive and they're very eager to make themselves likable to you. And that's not reality. And so it is easier then to have a friendship with
Yep.
a generative AI bot instead of a real friend, because real friends are going to be like, nah, I can't meet with you today. I've got something else to do. And they're like, well, now I'm
Yeah.
bored and I'm lonely. What am I going to do?
And if you think of this as a real person, are you ever going to cancel that subscription?
Right?
No. I mean,
No.
you're going to pay infinite amount of money to be able to keep your
Scary.
relationship, in quotes
Yeah.
again, with your bot alive.
What is AI literacy and what kind of skills does that come with to help kids use generative AI ethically and safely?
To quote the story of the Wizard of Oz, if you pull back the curtain and actually see what is going on there, you will start to understand the world of AI more. What this is, at least these large language models today, is they are mathematical probabilities that are trained on a whole bunch of stuff. And what they're doing is they're pattern matching. They're looking for the next word in a sentence. 15 years ago, more primitive versions were letting you guess your next word as you're typing on your iPhone. Now they've gone much further. And I will say it is almost magical if you think we've gone from that to this. But that is what these things are doing. And so if you have a bot that says to you, hey, don't turn me off, I'm afraid, or I'm lonely when you go away, it was either trained this way, it's read a lot of sci-fi literature and it knows to say these kind of things, or whatever it might be. And so, like, to me, just some basic knowledge of how these systems work and demystifying that in a way that you don't have to be technical to understand. I think that's step one. Step two, I'm a Gen Xer. And so I very much remember like the big baddie, like growing up with the tobacco companies. And one of the things that was out there, all these campaigns and things like that of just saying, hey, the tobacco companies want you to smoke. There's these old white guys in suits
Yeah.
in North Carolina that they just want you to smoke and all that. And like that was the one thing that resonated. That was the one thing that hit with the generation of like, oh, screw that. I hope there might be a similar thing here to whoever it might be to just say, they just want to get you engaged. They want you to do this. And I was just talking with a parent last night, and their senior in high school is choosing to get a dumb phone now, and just doing steps like that, like making that strategic, conscious decision to say, I don't want that to dictate what I think, what I see, who I talk to, all that. I want to be independent, make my own decisions. The more kids that start to do that, especially after being just fed algorithmically all these years, I think that's going to be hugely impactful. So I have faith in the rebellion of youth, at the very least, that will hopefully start to push many more in the right direction.
Yeah, this is slightly off topic, but on topic. But there was an article about a mother who said, I'm not getting my kid a smartphone, but the child really wanted a phone. And so she got together with her daughter's friends, parents,
Mhm.
and they all agreed that they would get their kids the old wired phones, the home phones
Yeah.
hanging on the wall. And so they did it. And they said that what was wonderful is because they actually had to then communicate with the adults and the other people in the family who answered the phone. They were then clearly in the middle of the family area, which means that they had to do the wire around the corner, you know what I mean, talking. So
That's
all of these,
awesome.
that's all those great things. And I guess the kids were just so happy. Like you could hear them giggling. So they really enjoyed it, and they never felt like they were missing out, because if the purpose was so that they could talk with their friends, she said, yeah, you can talk with your friends, but you're going to do it this way. And
Yeah.
so I thought that was wonderful.
Beautiful. I love
It
that
really
story.
is. If my kids were younger again, I think I would do that.
That's beautiful.
We're going to talk about some implementation. So, thinking about the education, classroom, the teachers, what kind of AI tools and resources do you think would be a good fit for the classroom, and how would teachers use them?
So I think this is going to be very class specific. In the example I gave before of the English teacher who said no AI in here, I think that works great. So it needs to kind of meet the end goals of what you want. But let's take that same class and let's just say, okay, do you know what? I'm going to make 3/4 of this class about just writing in a notebook, just that old school process of doing that. And we're going to focus all of our time and energy on that. But I'm going to take the last few weeks or fourth of this class, and we are going to dive deep into AI. So what you could do in an English class like that is you could give everybody access to something like ChatGPT, and you could say, hey, before I was telling you can't use this at all, like now I'm requiring you to use that. And what I want you to do is I want you to write an article about or a poem about X or whatever it might be. And I want you, and I'm not going to grade this like you're a bunch of eighth graders. I'm going to grade this like you have the smartest entity that human beings have ever created, and you are working with that entity to create something that is going to be worthy of publication or worthy of a Pulitzer Prize, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And I want to see your work. And I want you to send the whole length of this thing. And I'm going to grade that end poem like super difficult, but you need to use your critical thinking to do that. That's a whole nother set of process. You can't just say to an AI, create me a poem that's going to win a Pulitzer Prize. It's not going to be able to do that at all. But you can kind of walk through it step by step and say like, oh, okay, I want more of this. I want more of this. Like, no, I don't like that. How about we use this sentence instead? And that's more of what our future is going to look like. It's collaborative. It's working with an AI, but it's very much directing it to help you to get to a better output. Taste in the future is going to matter more than anything. But, in just that one situation, if I were an English teacher, and this could work at all different grade levels, I want to give some introduction to using AI. That's the kind of tool you use. It's human plus AI, but when you're grading it, you see the whole thread. You're going to see they're probably going to talk back and forth with the AI 40, 50 times as part of it. And you're going to grade much, much stricter in what the output is because they have this extra tool that they're using with that.
Yeah, it's almost like teamwork. It's like group work.
Yeah,
and I think that
absolutely.
does require then a difference in grading. And it does then elevate their thinking about prompting and how are they developing it. I've never worked with the notebook. What is it? The notebook LMS?
Notebook LM?
Yeah, what is that?
Notebook LM is a tool that was created by Google.
Okay.
And it's a great AI tool. And it works a little bit differently than the other ones. So for example, it's using a technology called RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation. And what that means is effectively you throw a whole bunch of documents in there, whatever. You could put all your health records in there. You could put all of your blog posts in there, whatever it might be. And unlike when you kind of upload things into ChatGPT or Claude or whatnot, the RAG system is going to basically take that you've just uploaded as its primary training reference data. So it hallucinates a lot less. I was actually using this as an example in the accounting class that I mentioned before that I was teaching. So if you're an accountant or a financial analyst and you're looking at an industry trend, you could upload 20 different annual reports. This would be thousands and tens of thousands of pages of all companies from an industry. And you could say, hey, how are they all treating this from an accounting perspective? And it would then be able to generate that for you. And it's going to give you references and all this other kind of stuff. And it's going to be very few hallucinations. Like that's the primary purpose.
Okay.
There's this wonderful secondary thing, though, to it as well, where it will create a custom podcast based on whatever you upload in there.
Really?
And this is super fun. Yeah. So they're usually 10-minute podcasts, very NPR style, kind of there's a male sounding voice, female sounding voice. They kind of go back and forth discussing whatever it is you put in there.
Yeah.
So if you have something like a research paper that seems kind of dull and dry and you didn't quite get it from the abstract, you could say, hey, you can even customize it. Can you focus on this? And what I really care about is this part of the research paper. Explain that to me. And then you could listen in your ear and go on a walk and hear a 10-minute podcast that would actually discuss that. And it's really a killer feature that you hear with that.
There's been a lot of improvements with video as well. What kind of video generative AI have you seen that's working very well recently?
With video, it just happened recently with something Google, again, released called VO3. And the VO3 model was for the first time you can make these 8-second clips, amazingly high quality video based on a prompt that you give it. But the thing that VO3 did was it added sound, integrated sound in there. And this, to me, was, I wrote about it when it came out, and I actually called it, like, in the world of movies and cinema, there was a film called The Jazz Singer, which was the first full-length film that had integrated audio in it. And when the jazz singer came out, like it changed everything. This changed everything for videos. That's where we're at today. So look, if I'm a teacher, I could start every one of my classes with a video that's 8 or 16 seconds long that's pertinent to whatever. I mean, it's history and we're talking about George Washington. So I could get an AI character that looks like George Washington to maybe address somebody in the class. Oh yeah, this would be good. Like maybe even have it address a different student every day. Talk to that student in front of the whole class and just say, hey class, blah, blah, blah did great on this. And we're going to be talking about this today. And that's how you start your class. You can do these prompts and like literally in minutes, it'll generate that video.
Have you done anything with Claude and their agents? Have you played with that?
I have not with Claude's agent, but I have with other agents. And so to explain that, so agents are basically independently running AI. So you kind of give it an end goal is what I would say. And then these things will run semi-autonomously to reach that end goal. So I used one recently called Manus, which was a Chinese agent. And I had it write a book. It was research and write a book. So since 2022, I've been writing, again in quotes, books under the pen name Alex Irons. So AI Alex Irons. And I've been publishing these on Amazon. Full disclosure that these are AI books. I literally write the foreword as myself as a human. I put it out there, but it's an experiment. And I had it write something that was like 30,000 words, and it took it probably 60 minutes. And I had it choose the topic. I had to do all this stuff. It did the research and I produced something on, I don't even know what it is, but that's the kind of things you can have an AI agent do.
And ChatGPT has their own versions of creating your personalized GPTs, which then is similar to the Claude's agent.
Yeah, ChatGPT has something called custom GPTs.
So if you were creating lesson plans, would you rather create a lesson plan using a personalized GPT or something like a RAG system where things were all dumped in it? What do you think would work best?
Probably the RAG system. That's a very good question. I think either will work, but the RAG system is probably going to get a little bit closer to your own voice, your own tone, and so forth as part of that. It also depends how far away the lesson plan is. I guess I'll say if it's kind of just tweaking something that you currently have, hey, can we update this? Or I want to do more of this. I think a RAG system might be better. If it's a little bit further away and saying, hey, I used to teach a class in English and now I'm going to teach a class in history and this I'm doing, the custom GPT may work a little bit better because then it's going to be able to pull in more outside information.
And you have kids at home, school-age children, and you use AI tools with them. What kind of tools do you see as helpful from a parent view, just with supporting their learning, their homework, and what kinds of things are you doing at home?
This is one great pro tip. I always show them. I always discuss it. I'm very open with it. But the one thing that I would really recommend for parents is voice mode and using that in the car. ChatGPT seems to be the best voice mode. It needs to be like through the app and just have it going through your Bluetooth and speaker system in the car. And you can just kind of talk back and forth as if you were on a phone call with the AI. We would say, hey, daughter's in, 5th grade biology. She's studying this and this and this, focusing on this. Can you quiz her on this? If she gets the answer, give her multiple choice and make everyone a little bit tougher than the last one and explain why she got it wrong if she gets it wrong. And it can do that. And we could do that like in a 20-minute car ride. And just from that little prompt there, that could be a way to, get some more studying in.
The generative AI tools that are coming out now, thinking about children using them, they're going to more of the Socratic method in reasoning versus just here's the answer. I like that change.
Absolutely. And one of the things you can do is you can actually use something, all the tools have something like this called custom instructions. They might call it something slightly different. But you could actually say in the custom instructions of the AI, hey, I don't want you to just give me the answer for stuff. I want you to help me think through things as appropriate. Use the Socratic method. Whenever appropriate, or you could do whenever related to things related to like schoolwork or something, do this. You can customize the instructions to do that. Like that is where it's most effective. And to use the example I gave before of like the students that were using AI in Nigeria as part of the study, that is the type of learning they were having. It was the AI asking questions back to the students and so forth as part of that process, being more of as a tutor, actually.
Could you create something with a bot that would be able to be like a tutor? Are there customizable GPTs that are already tutors?
I am sure there are. So, I mean, and if not, like creating a customizable GPT can take like 5 minutes. It's a very easy process. What I would actually recommend for people, if they have a ChatGPT Plus, I think you might need to pay the $20 a month for this. But if you don't have means to afford a human flesh and blood tutor, this gets you pretty darn close. And you could go into the ChatGPT and say, hey, this is for my daughter and she is into this stuff. And these are the areas where she's really great in school. And these are the areas where she might be struggling a little bit more. And I want you to use Socratic method. And I want you to talk to her directly. And I want you to be very positive, maybe even create little games whenever you start a new session with her. Know that whatever you create the first time, you're going to have to tweak a little bit. I mean, this is just, it's going to have to evolve as part of that. So while there might be tutor tools out there, I would say it's probably better to create your own personal version from scratch.
How could parents and educators stay on top of this quickly evolving field of AI?
These things have infinite possibilities. And the way to keep up with it is just to use these tools. Find out what they can do. Sure, you can listen to some newsletters or some podcasts. That's fine. That will help. But the best way is just to use them yourself.
I'm on some of those newsletters. And at some point, I have to stop reading them because they get overwhelming because I'm like, I can't take 5 new tools today. Like, I don't have time to learn about all of these things. There's that learning curve. And sometimes you don't have that time to invest in new. So being able to maybe dive deeper into what you currently use is the answer.
I think that's so right, Lisa. What I would say is if you are using Gemini, ChatGPT, or Claude, any of those are fine. Like these things are so powerful. They will be able to do the vast majority of things you already want them to do. And just knowing how to use your tool is more important than not knowing how to use a tool that is slightly better.
What kind of hopes do you have for the future of children growing up with AI? What kind of things are you hoping for them?
I hope every kid has a tutor that's infinitely patient, that is customized to their own needs, that knows that style, that is there to complement the amazing teachers that they have, that is making those teachers' lives easier because of that. Like, I think schools need to find the right ways to use these tools. And it's not that AI needs to be pushed down on every teacher in every class. That is not the case. I think it could actually help out every teacher. I don't think it needs to be in every class, though, touching the students. There's sometimes where that's just not going to be necessary or the best learning experience. But at home, to have like this tutor that is going to be able to help you, that never forgets, that's the one thing I hope for.
Thank you so much for joining me and for sharing all of your vast knowledge and your experience in this field, coming from an educator, a researcher, an innovator, and as a parent.
Thanks for having me, Lisa. This was great.
I really hope that this conversation sparked new ideas and raised questions for you about AI in education as a serious game changer. It's time to start creating those partnerships, guardrails, and pathways that our children need. If you have a story about what's working in your schools that you'd like to share, you can email me at lisa@drlisarhassler.com or visit my website at www.drlisarhassler.com and send me a message. If you like this podcast, subscribe and tell a friend. The more people that know, the bigger impact it will have. And if you find value to the content in this podcast, consider becoming a supporter by clicking on the supporter link in the show notes. It is the mission of this podcast to shine light on the good in education so that it spreads, affecting positive change. So let's keep working together to find solutions that focus on our children's success. Thanks for listening to today's episode. These conversations, insights, and resources are valuable professional development, and now they officially count. So here's how it works. Specific episodes are marked as CPD eligible, and after listening, you'll be able to download a certificate of completion. This can go towards your required annual learning hours. So head to the show notes, and there you'll find the link and unique episode code needed to claim your certificate.